Hey everybody, I hope you're doing okay. If you haven't gotten a chance to listen to the latest upload that I put out, which is me going on the radio with Joseph Roop, I really kind of describe some of the research that I've done and everything, and it'll probably help some of you that are maybe new to this channel to understand kind of where the research is that I have done over the last several years, which has been confirmed by many Freemasons, the Master of the Knights Templar, and so forth. It's also been confirmed by previous authors such as Anthony West, who grabbed a lot of his research from R.A. Schwaller de Lübeck, who was in Egypt and studied the Temple of Luxor from ancient Egypt. And it goes into the idea of these cathedrals being designed with the cosmos in mind and also man in mind, because man is similar to the cosmos. Man is made after the image of God. What I wanted to show you here real quick is I happen to be listening to, just kind of reviewing one of my friends, Dino here. He's uploaded one of these Manly P. Hall lectures. And Manly P. Hall is discussing the Illuminati. And what I find very interesting about it is, of course, Manly P. Hall has a different perspective on it than the masses do. The masses are typically embedded in fear and understand. They have a complete misunderstanding of what all of this means. Okay, so with that in mind, Manly P. Hall starts to discuss the Illuminati. When they first started out, they took Europe and they divided Europe into an understanding of the ancient world. And what's interesting about it is they assigned Europe, and inside Europe, they assigned Austria to be Egypt, as if it were the ancient world. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of this, and so you can hear what Manly P. Hall has to say. And then I want to show you an interesting link based on the research that I've been doing over the last several years. So listen to what he has to say real quick.
And so the Illuminati devised an ingenious scheme. They took a map of Europe and they divided it according to a map of the ancient world, restoring in different places the names of then forgotten or at least long dead empires and kingdoms. They then divided their own members, assigning to each one a classical name by which it would be almost impossible to identify them. And they wrote their own sort of private historical geography of world situations. For our present purpose, it is important to note that in their new geography, the Illuminati assigned the name Egypt to Austria.
So they assigned Egypt to Austria. Now let's take a look at a map real quick. And here's Austria. And if we zoom out, this is all of Europe. And as we can see, Austria is right in the very center. Now, also, if you take a look at Egypt, we also know that the Nile Delta is the very center of all of Earth's land masses. So if we take a look at Austria, Austria seems to be right in the center of Europe, which is also very interesting. So they obviously must have understood the fact that Egypt was the very center of the Earth, or the center of the land masses of the Earth. So now let's take a look at something else that's very interesting about this. The very first discovery that I made was in Karlskirch. Karlskirch is a cathedral located in Vienna, Austria. And it has a high altar that is the Orion Nebula. And so this is the image right here. And as you can see, I've broken it down. We have this area right here, which we see in Karlskirch, represents the bow shock that we see inside the Orion Nebula. This bright area right here represents the Tetragrammaton. And as you can see, these areas that have been squared off right here correspond to the areas that we see right here. So the left-hand side of the bow shock, we see this particular image. And on the right-hand side, we see this particular image, and I've broken it down into smaller detail right here. This corresponds with what we see in ancient Egypt. The top of the pyramid, which is missing in ancient Egypt, the Pyramid of Khufu, or the Great Pyramid. The top of the pyramid is missing because it is a symbolic understanding of the cosmos. And when we take a look at Helena Blavatsky and her writings, and we take a look at some of these other, if we listen to Manly P. Hall's lecture regarding the ancient pyramids in Egypt, they left that top off because it represents a disappearing of the cosmos into the invisible portion of the universe. Now, the very top of the cosmos would be the nebula, because the nebula is the first thing that comes into existence, and then from it produces the stars and the planets and so forth. And that's the reason why when we take a look at the Tree of Life, at the very top where you have Kether, Kether is the crown, and the crown cosmically represents the nebula. And then from there, that crown produces the stars, the planets, and so forth, all the way down into the physical world, which is the earth, for example, which is Malkuth, or the kingdom, which is also kind of a physical representation of something which Kether is, which is kind of a less physical representation of the cosmos. And then, of course, that is a copy of what we see in the invisible archetypal realm. But I find this very interesting because inside Austria, we have this famous cathedral, Karlskirche, which this altar was built in 1730-1740. And this is an image of the Orion Nebula. And what's more interesting about this is that this image that you see here of the Orion Nebula is in infrared. Infrared wasn't discovered as far as our ability to be able to see it using telescopes or what have you until the 1800s. And this particular thing was built in the 1730s and 1740s, which denotes that these people were using some type of clairvoyance or some type of ability like this in order to see this stuff. We see this infrared image of the Orion Nebula in many different things, dating all the way back as early as I can find into the 1500s. And the earliest copy I would say is we can find in St. Mary's Cathedral in France, showing the same type of image, but Karlskirche is very apparent. We can see these particular images as divided up. We can see the bow shock. It's obviously apparent. We can see the image on the left, which is very apparent, and the image on the right also divided up. So this is really interesting because we know that with the ancient Egyptians, and even according to Graham Hancock, that the Orion constellation was the most important constellation to the ancient Egyptians. This area right here represented where Osiris came forth as Orion. This is where it began, the Orion Nebula. And when we take a look at images of the Orion Nebula, we see the Barnard's Loop, which shows a golden spiral that goes from the Orion Nebula and expands the whole Orion constellation, dropping off stars at each one of these. Also, if we take a look at a 3D image of the Orion constellation, the Orion Nebula is the furthest thing back, which means it was spiraling and moving back and dropping stars off as it moved. So this is really interesting. This represents the crown, the nebula does, and if you look at any Kabbalistic texts, the spiral nebula also represents the crown. And so this is what the very top part, this is missing. The eye of Kether is also the very eye that you see at the very top of the triangle, which is located on the pyramid. So I wanted to show you that connection. I thought it was very interesting, and Manly P. Hall's connection to this as well. So I may not be posting too much here in the near future. I'll be coming back every now and then as I get information, but I've got a new job that's going to be pretty demanding on my time, so I will probably be just occasionally coming by and dropping things off to you guys or uploading stuff, but I won't be doing as heavy of research. But eventually I will be producing a book for you guys, because I've been asked for that a million times, but that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and so I'm just going to have to wait till my next opening is before I can do something like that. But anyways, I thought this would be interesting for you guys to see. You guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.